What's going on, Eagles fans? This is Week 16 recap on the Bird's Nest. I'm Tanner Gomartin, joined by Max Gretzula as always. Max, let's get right into it. The Eagles beat up the Giants 34-10. Beginning of the game wasn't as much of a beat up as it was in the second half because at first the Eagles come out and they can't get anything going. Jalen Hurts making some questionable throws. But in that second half, Max, as an Eagles fan, even it was hard to just sit there and watch the Eagles just run over the Giants, who had two different quarterbacks in, neither of which obviously were Daniel Jones. Not able to get over 100 yards for either of those quarterbacks there. But some good stuff did happen in that game. Lane Johnson got a touchdown. Devontae Smith proving to be that wide receiver the team needed. Now, Jalen Hurts, 17 of 29, 199 yards, two passing touchdowns. Max, we keep going on this. The last 3 weeks, I feel like I keep checking your temperature on Jalen Hurts. How do we feel after this performance?
Yeah, I think you said it best, right? First half struggled a lot, not only Hurts, but the whole team in general. But you just mentioned the stat line near 200 yards passing, two touchdowns. A lot of this back end of the schedule has really helped the Eagles against these weaker opponents. But at the end of the day, I still stand by if the Eagles can't get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, you have to keep Hurts for another year and just see how it plays out. This is like that first rebuilding year because it's last year or two they tried to just fight through with Wentz being the starting quarterback and pretending they were a contender when they really weren't. But this year was like that first year where they really flipped the script. And so far, Hurts has the Eagles at 8-7 right now and in a playoff spot. So I'll be the last person to complain at this point. The Eagles are looking good as far as the rest of their schedule goes. Hopefully, that Dallas game, the Cowboys will rest their players, depending on if they have the division wrapped up, and the Eagles can just win out and not have to get any help from any other teams.
Yes, and the reason I mentioned Devontae Smith earlier is because he had 5 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown. But Max, I mean, his field awareness has been just incredible lately with the toe taps, making sure them feet are in bounds. I mean, he's playing like a wide receiver who has been in the NFL for a little bit.
Yeah, he's a stud. I
And
mean,
this,
100%. I mean, he is just the real deal. I think we just haven't had the opportunity to see him really take that next step in the pros yet because he just doesn't get peppered enough with the targets. We see a guy like Jalen Waddle getting hammered with like 12, 13 targets a game in Miami. Devontae Smith's been a guy at 5, 6 targets a game, but when he's called upon to be that superstar receiver that we saw at Alabama, he's answered the bell each and every time. 5 for 80 and a touchdown. That's what you expect from a guy like Smith. And it just hasn't been, the magnifying glass hasn't been shown over him the last few weeks. I feel like just because he hasn't been like that involved in the offense because it's so run heavy.
yeah, and real quick here before we move on, do the Eagles need an older wide receiver for next season, that veteran guy that would really maybe add to this team? Or do you think the Eagles are fine with who they are now, which is weird to say because in the beginning of the season, you say, all right, look, you have unproven wide receiver and Devontae Smith hasn't played yet. Quez Watkins, I mean, Greg Ward, and these guys that you obviously don't think can get the job done, Jalen Reagor. What do the Eagles need to do in the wide receiver room next season?
I just think they need one veteran guy. I'm not going to go out there and people are saying spend another first round pick on a receiver. That's not going to really help the Eagles. I think they need a veteran guy to come in here. I've heard Allen Robinson's name thrown out there the most from the Chicago Bears. He's probably not going to go back to Chicago next season. He's going to be a free agent. That would be a great pickup. He had a down year, so the money won't cost as much as it made of 2 years ago because the Bears are just not that good of a team. But I think Allen Robinson's still a hell of a receiver, very talented. And him coming into the Eagles organization along with Devontae Smith, that would be a great 1-2 punch with Robinson still being, in his prime for the most part. That would be a great addition. I think because the Eagles are so run heavy, they don't really rely on their receivers on the outside a lot. Especially because Hurts doesn't really throw the ball down the field a ton. And when he does, we saw a couple of those balls have just way too much air under them. Luckily, Quez Watkins was able to come down with that nice catch, but again, not a great throw. Same thing with Devontae Smith down the right sideline. That was a ball that was just floated down the sideline. Luckily, yeah, Smith was able to stop and come back to it. But again, another poorly thrown football. But again, the receivers are making plays, give them credit. And the Eagles' rushing attack, even though Miles Sanders is now a little banged up, has been dominant for the last few weeks.
Yeah, Miles Sanders now with a broken bone in his hand. The Eagles were hopeful he was going to be able to play through it. It's looking like if the Eagles do make the playoffs, he might be able to play in that, but there's still some other stuff that they have to assess on that. But real quick on the Jalen Hurts, I just noticed that his throws are still coming in late. The whole field notices that this guy is open before Jalen Hurts does. Obviously, that's bird's eye view and everything like that. But you would like to see him execute his throws quicker, a little more accuracy going forward. But I mean, this is still great improvement from the beginning of the season. But Max, we were talking about the future of this team next season, but let's stop doing that. Let's talk about this season right now with the playoff hopes you have. First off, the good things to happen for the Eagles in week 16 where the Dolphins, or I guess it was, yeah, where the Dolphins beating the Saints on Monday Night Football. Going into the Giants matchup, the Eagles had around a 41% chance of making the playoffs. After winning, they had a 60% chance. And thanks to that Saints loss, they had a 68% chance. And now it looks like the Eagles do control their own destiny going forward. That's what Eagles fans like to hear because the past few times the Eagles have made it to the playoffs, it was due to watching a game after the Eagles, say the Vikings. When I was at FedEx Field, we all gathered around the TV and watched the Steelers lose. And then it was a Vikings game that happened during the game that we were scoreboard watching. And so controlling your own destiny, if the Eagles win the next two games, they are in the playoffs. But they can get into the playoffs in this next week if the Birds get that win at FedEx Field, the Packers beat the Vikings, the 49ers beat the Texans, or the Panthers beat the Saints. So it's going to be a lot of watching TV after that Eagles win and during. But I mean, this has to make us feel more confident in this team since the destiny is in their hands.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think one of the things that we have to mention too is first, I want to say I hope they win the next two games because that would be 10-7. I had them going 10-7 preseason, so that would be pretty cool. Probably my first time ever that would ever happen with me predicting their record, especially with that 17th game on the schedule. But overall, when we look at these teams that we're playing, the Washington football team, Dallas Cowboys, we even mentioned it with hopefully they're resting their players. But on the other side of things, you have to look at what these other teams have in front of them, the Vikings, the Falcons right behind the Eagles at the moment, even the 49ers, who I think are a pretty tough opponent. Obviously, the Eagles wouldn't play them in the first round, but the 49ers got beat by the Titans. And when you talk about who you want to see the Eagles match up with, it could be the Cowboys, it could be the Rams, could be the Buccaneers, even losing Chris Godwin with that torn ACL 2 weeks ago. So do you have a team that you prefer to play over the other when you come and think about the Rams, the Cowboys, the Cardinals even? They haven't been playing their best football either.
I'll tell you what, Max, how exciting would that Cowboys Eagles playoff matchup be? I mean, you go back in history in what the 70s or 80s when the Eagles played in that conference round, and it was the Eagles Super Bowl. They won and then they dropped an egg in the Super Bowl. It was bad, but they focused so much on this Cowboys matchup. And I think playing this team three times, I mean, it's obviously happened before. And you see the Cowboys just beating up teams like Washington in their last game. I mean, that was an embarrassment for Washington. But this team is still inconsistent to me. I mean, it's still the Dallas Cowboys. They have so many weapons, but a lot of them are not on the same page most of the time. If you play an Eagles team who now in the playoffs, they got that motivation to keep going. I mean, they made the playoffs. There's guys who have not been in the playoffs yet. That might become a factor. Dak Prescott, he's been playing pretty well, despite what his haters have been saying about him. That's a matchup I'm definitely circling. And these other matchups, they don't give me as great of a feeling, like the Buccaneers still. I mean, that's Tom Brady over there. I'm circling that Cowboys Eagles playoff matchup.
Not bad. I think if I was gonna pick the Cowboys, but the way they're playing lately is just at a different level. That offense is firing on all cylinders. I think if I had to pick personally, and again, I think the Eagles are underdogs in any of these matchups, but I'm going to have to go with
Yeah.
the Rams. I think the Rams right now, I've seen them struggle. They have Cooper Kupp, who's probably the best receiver in football this year, but outside of that, Odell Beckham has been good. He has, what is he? I think he has 4 touchdowns in 6 games. But outside of that, the rushing attack for the Rams hasn't been great. Their defense, they still have a couple of great names, especially Ramsey and Aaron Donald. But I think if the Eagles are able to run the football, because that's their number one goal, I think, moving forward offensively, Cardinals defensive line is tough. Cowboys defense has been very solid all season long. I think the Rams might be one of the few teams you could run on. And again, I watched that, or I didn't watch most. I saw parts of that Seahawks Rams game last week, and I just thought the Seahawks, being a bad football team, hung around too long for my liking for the Rams. So I think the Eagles have the best chance of getting by LA.
All right. Well, let's hope we're talking about an Eagles win next time we're on the screen here, Max. But that's going to wrap up Week 16's recap of the Bird's Nest. Thank you for tuning in.